Movie Donkey Kong is bad. Alright, that's the thumbnail settled. Hey everyone! I'm Albert Boris. Okay, so don't let this video title fool you into thinking that I'm not excited for the game. Because I definitely am. The most I've ever been in years, in fact. I've grown up playing Mario Kart games for as long as I've owned a Nintendo console, and to say that I've been dying to finally get a new installment in this franchise would be a huge understatement. It's been almost 11 years since our last game, Mario Kart 8, so not only is it exciting to finally get a new game for the Switch 2 at that, but from the looks of it, I think it definitely has potential to become one of the best and most ambitious games in the series. But as with all brand new products, there's always a few things on the back of my mind that I'm worried about. And while that may be unfair to say, seeing as we only have like 10 seconds of gameplay to go from, even those 10 seconds were fairly informative, which is why I'd like to talk about them. Especially because I've now also had the time to properly process the trailer. But I also made this video because I want to get the Mario Kart hype train on again, because boy do I love finally getting to make some relevant Mario Kart videos again. And I still have full faith in the Mario Kart team that they'll pull this off, as it's all about the execution of it that matters most. But yeah, with all that being said, I say, let's dive right into it. My first and foremost concern is that this Mario Kart might end up a little too ambitious for its own good. In many ways, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe kind of already perfected the core Mario Kart gameplay. 12 racers was just enough for it to be chaotic but not too frantic. And the courses also struck a very nice balance between large enough to keep us interested, but also small enough to not go on for too long. And well, don't fix what's not broken. Already, Mario Kart on Nintendo Switch 2 seems to change up quite a few of these things though. Because for one, there's now 24 racers, which is a pretty big jump from what we're used to. And on one hand, it's good because with so many characters, the roster is also gonna have to be far bigger to accommodate it. But what I'm most concerned about here is that by having so many characters racing at all times, race placement is gonna matter much less. Obviously, the goal of Mario Kart is to try to finish the race with as high of a place as possible, but with this many players, not only might it become harder to catch up, especially if you're playing online with real people, but unless you're like in the top 8, it's not really gonna matter much which place you're in. Like yeah, 24th place is obviously even worse than 12th place, but who cares, you're still way behind 1st place. The only way this is really gonna matter is if you, for example, earn way more points if you're in 12th than 24th. But then 1st place and all the other high placements are also gonna have to award you way more than usually to make up for it. And it's gonna cause there to be abnormally massive gaps in points between the higher and lower places. And that is what I mostly mean by it being difficult to catch up. Physically, it may luckily not be too difficult to catch up mid-race, because to make up for it, even the one course we saw is way bigger than what we're used to. But bigger isn't always better, because with huge tracks, there also runs the risk of them getting boring fairly quickly. And to make matters more concerning, one of the sections in this track is just a long straight highway. Granted, this is likely also the first track of the game, going by the name Mario Bros Circuit, so the following tracks are likely way more engaging, but it's still not the best first impression. The main reason I'm concerned about this though is how the retro tracks are gonna be handled, because they were not made with any of this game's mechanics in mind at all. In some of the previous games, new gimmicks like underwater driving or gliding were still fairly easy to slap onto previous tracks, since they were pretty cookie-cutter additions, all things said. And the new tracks themselves were still pretty equal to the old ones in length. But with this game's new tracks being so much bigger, retro tracks might feel pretty underwhelming next to them, especially since the new gimmicks like the changing paths aren't things you can just slap onto them. It worked for Calamar Desert and Peach Gardens in the Booster Course Pass, but that's only because they had unused roads to begin with. And if it's hard to catch up with 24 players on the new tracks, imagine how much worse it would be on the old tracks, which are already much shorter to begin with. And maybe this is based on false expectations. Maybe we won't get retro tracks at all because of this. At the very least, that would explain why the Booster Course Pass had such a strong focus on them to make up for it. But at the same time, we've had retro tracks for so long now that it would feel kinda anticlimactic if they just got rid of them, especially when they're usually the biggest talking point online about Mario Kart. But on the flip side, what I'm most excited about is the fact that the Arrow gimmick returns from the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. Because the city tracks in that DLC were easily my favorite part of it, thanks to that mechanic. Why? Well, it's simple. It just made tracks feel a lot more varied when each lap took you on a slightly different path. But at the same time, at least for me, a huge part of that novelty in 8 Deluxe was the fact that not only was it a brand new gimmick that we had never seen before, but also the fact that it only appeared on a select few tracks. The rest of the past were still classic free lap courses that we all know and love, which helped make that gameplay mechanic feel fresh and not overused. But seeing as it's already used pretty extensively in this new game's first track, I take it that it's gonna be pretty heavily featured throughout the game, and I really hope it doesn't backfire and end up feeling too gimmicky. Like, keep it at 6 or 8 tracks at most. I think that's the best balance, since it does change up the gameplay a lot more dramatically than previous gimmicks. But if it's not the main gimmick though, I presume whatever this glowing thing is gonna be. And my guess is that it's a wonder flower in an item box, which would explain not only why it moves the way it does, but also why it's yellow, because in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the desert wonder flower also share this color. And yeah, there is a concern for that too. On one hand, I think it could definitely be an interesting way to spice up the races on say the last lap, by having the track change a bit. And I wouldn't be surprised if this really is a wonder flower, because this game already looks very visually reminiscent to that game. But once again, it's also one of those things that I worry would make the game a bit too much. Sometimes I just want a nice simple race to soothe my nerves, but if there's also going to be a wonder effect taking place every time, the novelty might once again wear off fairly quickly. And in the worst case scenario, there's also the risk of me just getting completely sick from always seeing it. Because let's face it, there's always going to be someone ready to nab it, whether you'd like it or not.
Dude, this is your concern? If we're getting wonder flowers in this game, Nintendo will obviously give us an option to turn them off.
Okay, that's actually a good point, never mind. And actually, on second thought, maybe this could be one of the best ways to spice up the retro tracks though, and make them feel more consistent with the new tracks. Oh, whatever. Man, I'm feeling bad about going so harsh on this game. Lastly, for my final worry, we have the art style. Okay, this one isn't really so much of a concern, as much as it's just something that took me aback at first. But admittedly, the art style of this game did kinda shock me, in neither a good or bad way. Going off from Mario Kart 8, I was half expecting the next game to largely follow in that game's footsteps, with its semi-realistic visuals. After all, that's kind of what made that game so appealing to begin with, as it brought life into the courses in a way that cartoony graphics just couldn't. But instead, this game, while it still looks good, went for a more bouncy and bright approach. As I said, it looks very similar to Super Mario Bros. Wonder, but for that game I was all in for the new aesthetic, as 2D Mario had gotten so stale by that point. The same can't really be said for Mario Kart 8's visuals though, which is why I feel that it's a bit riskier to already use that art style on Mario Kart as well. Some of the characters like Bowser look a bit uncanny, but even Mario and Luigi look kinda scary. They're just staring into nothing. Like, I hate to say it, but it almost reminded me a bit of AI art. And I know that it's not, but it still feels a bit that way, from how puny the cars and karts look as an example. Also, if it wasn't obvious from the thumbnail already, I don't like movie Donkey Kong. It's not exactly a deal breaker, personally I never plays him at all anyways, but he just looks a bit hard to take seriously compared to his Donkey Kong Country design. Not that his 8 Deluxe model was any better, why are his teeth sticking out? But still. For this game specifically, I'm neutral on this decision. If this is gonna be his permanent design going forward, that would make me very sad. Granted, however, the art style is probably the thing I'm least concerned about. And even if the gameplay mechanics I brought up earlier backfire, I'm fairly sure that the art style will grow on me. I was similarly worried when it came to Mario and Luigi Brothership's art style, as they made the game look fairly different from what came before, but again, it fortunately grew on me as soon as I had just played a few minutes. And I think the same is gonna happen here. Again, this is definitely probably just a case of us not having seen enough of the game yet, but it still left me feeling a bit uneasy. But yeah, thankfully, those are the only concerns that I have for Mario Kart on a Nintendo Switch 2. And even then, I'm not that worried. Mario Kart is one of the most consistent Mario spin-off franchises of all time, with the only games I don't outright like being the first two, Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64. Every other game has been at least a worthwhile experience, and I have very little reason to fear that this game won't continue that trend. And regardless, it will be fun to see how well this video holds up when the game does eventually release. Maybe it won't be as amazing as I initially thought it would be, but for what it's worth, I'm really interested to see how this Mario Kart will grow on me. as more information gets revealed. Because remember, we've still only seen like 10 seconds of footage. There's still a whole other world we don't know about this game. But what are your thoughts on the new Mario Kart Switch 2 trailer? Are you also worried about it, or do you think it's gonna become a flawless victory? Let me know all of this down below in the comment section, and make sure to also like, share and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more Mario Kart videos from me. Follow me on Discord, Twitter and Patreon for more updates as well. And with all of that being said, I'm signing off now. Until next time.